So I have this question today about whether or not it makes sense to hire an intern in your practice. So first I want to acknowledge that the word intern has a couple different definitions depending on where you are in the country. So in California, people who have finished grad school and are what we might call pre-licensed or associate licenses in North Carolina are called interns. Whereas here an intern is somebody who's not quite done with school yet and they're doing their practicum. So I want to acknowledge I'm not sure where this person is located. So there we go. I'll also thank TherapyNotes for sponsoring us today. I'll talk about them in a second actually because they tie into this. So I think before you figure out whether or not it makes sense to do in your practice, I want you to take the first step of considering if you want to take on the responsibility of another person's clinical practice. The clients that they see, if you are their supervisor and their boss, what goes on between that clinician and that client is your responsibility. So first, make sure that that's something you're willing to take on. Next, are you willing to do the business side of this thing right? It is not just bringing somebody in and cutting them a check sometimes based on the number of hours they work. It is a very different situation than that. When you're doing it the right way, you're getting them on as a W-2 employee because if they're an intern, you are supervising their work. I know like in Tennessee, for instance, you can't pay interns. So it's really checking into the rules and regulations of your state and your license. Next, ask yourself, are you really passionate about helping train and bring up really excellent clinicians? If that's not like a passion piece for you, I'm going to discourage it. And next, are you willing to search for the right person? It's kind of like when we are house hunting or we're looking for a new car. Sometimes we don't take the time that we should take. We just get like feverish about it and buy one that works. We don't want to do that with an employee whose caseload we're responsible for. Next, are you ready to take on the responsibility of being responsible for somebody's livelihood? That is a piece that I didn't realize was something that was going to be on my mind a lot when building up the caseload of my associate licensed clinician in my practice. I really want to make sure that she and her family are well taken care of, and I didn't realize that was going to be kind of an ongoing pressure for me. So if the answer is yes to all of this, I want you to do the math. I want you to consider the extra cost of having somebody on, what more you're going to pay in liability insurance, the cost of payroll, of adding somebody to your EHR. So TherapyNotes would be a good option for that because they have integrated for group practice. You're probably going to have to decrease your caseload to manage this to some extent. So the lost income there, potentially paying for another office, paying for another phone number potentially, paying for somebody to answer the phone maybe, and your time if you're providing supervision for this person, making sure that that's all getting counted in the costs. So the margins may be like too slim if your person's fee is really low. So I really want you to do the math with this. If you answered yes to all those previous questions, Jesse just joined us. Jesse is like a master of group practice, so feel free to hop in, Jesse. So the margins may be slimmer than might make sense if their fee is really low. My clinician that I hired is amazing. She's so good at what she does. She charges a very a hefty fee because she's really great at what she does. And we do supervision weekly, and I know that all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed in terms of making sure we've set up our business properly so that she's taken care of, I'm taken care of, the state's happy, it's the I almost said the federal's happy, the tax people are getting their piece. I like to do things the right way. You probably do too. I think Maureen Warbach is an excellent resource for that. So you can check her out at the Group Practice Exchange. She walks you through everything that needs to be done so that you're on the up and up. Just because you have friends who might have taken on an intern without any sort of structure does not mean that that's what you should do. Make sure you do it right if you do it. So that is my answer. I also had a question from someone about whether supervising an intern is fruitful. I think it absolutely can be. It also cannot be. So it's being choosy when you're taking on an intern in any way, making sure that you're choosing somebody who is someone you respect. They have a lot of promise clinically, and they're willing to work hard. I think that that's a big piece of it, and they're willing to look at how their stuff might come up in sessions. In pricing supervision, it's also important to remember that this might be a population of people who don't have a ton of money to put towards supervision, but it also might be a group of people who do have money to put towards supervision. So to consider what you need to make sure that it makes sense for you to not take on another client and to take on a clinician. So one reason I think group soup is awesome is it's cheaper for them, and you're able to get paid a significant amount more if you're seeing more people paying a smaller amount than individual. So my 10 cents on interns, I think they're great. And like anybody you hire, anybody you invite into your life, in fact, be picky. All right.